All right, so I'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to our Alabama office hours. My name is Jonathan Bernos, of course, your customer success manager. I haven't met everyone yet. I'm still making my rounds here for introduction calls and just to kind of reacquaint myself with the region. But I'm also familiar with many schools in the Southeast and with Alabama. I worked in Alabama with many schools previously in the territory or in the region. Um, Before January, we of course moved some things around in January, but before that, I'd worked with many of you. So getting reacquainted and refamiliar. But one of the new resources I'm bringing to the table here in working as your customer success manager is to operate in office hours time. This will be once a month. This will be the week of the month. We'll have the third Monday of the month at 3:30 Eastern time. We'll have this time open for just kind of a Q&A. If anyone wants to bring workflow questions, really anything at all related to Instructure, feel free to bring them to this call. I do record these calls. I also theme these calls. So during the office hours, I'm going to take just to give you an idea of the format here. I'm going to take about 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes, just walking through tips and tricks, best practices. Every month there'll be a theme. This month, I like to start with support services. Next month, I'll be working or talking about training services. The themes will always really focus on what you have contracted. So today, I'm going to talk through the different levels of support services. So it kind of encapsulates everybody depending on, so no matter what support service you have, we're going to talk through some best practices, tips, and tricks. Some of this stuff might be review, might be just refresher for you. Some of it may be new. So if this can be helpful, if you'd like to distribute this call, this recording to others, to instructors, feel free to do that. If there's any tidbits within the information I present today, you're welcome to kind of share that information. So after I'm done walking through the theme, with just a couple slides here and points of information, I'll open up the office hours for general questions. You're welcome to pop in. You can type any questions into the chat. You can come off mute and talk on the call. Over time, hopefully this becomes a networking opportunity where you're able to talk to some of the other schools that attend the calls. Because it's optional, again, you're welcome to leave at any point. You don't have to stay on if you feel like you've had enough. You also can pop in at any time during the hour. It's just an open hour. I've had with the past 6 months in using the office hours format, I've had people join from just different instructors that have maybe never been on a Canvas call before. So perfectly fine to do that. If I can't answer questions on the call, I'll definitely take notes and follow up on the anything that I'm not able to answer on the office hours call. Can follow up with later through email or a point of contact. So excited to work with you all again. Again, my goal is, in addition to office hours, is also to have a monthly call with many of you, or also to deliver a monthly newsletter / email that will have a recorded webinar. The webinar will be focused on release notes and deploy notes. And so all of this combined just kind of allows me to use the time when we do have a call for either a quarterly business review or to really go in depth on your configuration, how you're using Canvas. And so again, one of my main objectives is just to look at utilization, make sure you're using Canvas the way that you intend to. So we'll talk through that too on kind of individual calls. So support services today. I wanted to run through a couple just tips and tricks or thoughts on support services to hopefully help out during fall start, spring start. Fall start, of course, is in swing, starting to ramp up. So I know everyone's getting busy. So just some tips and tricks that might help out during the fall start if we have increased traffic, if you have definitely an increase in questions coming in from your instructors that are starting back up, increase from students, of course. So support terms, if you're unfamiliar with your support terms or in your contract, feel free to reach out. Haley Carey is our renewals representative. She's great about answering questions from our contracts. So if you're ever not sure of the terms, contracts, what's being contracted, especially around support, reach out, let us know, and we can have a conversation about that. Support terms, I just took a screenshot of really what we have different levels of support. The levels you're probably familiar with: standard support, 24/7, and tier 1 support. We actually have some smaller levels, granular levels of support services, a little more buffet style. But you have self-service, of course. I don't believe anybody in higher ed is on self-service. I hope not. I think everyone kind of starts with standard support, but below that, free for you may have instructors that may be in different formats outside the institution. may use a free for Canvas, free for students, free for instructor. That would be a self-support, so won't hear much about that. Standard support would be our first level, kind of our introductory level, which some of us are on currently. Everything in addition to that, every level above that will be just added services to the standard support level. So we also have 24/7, which is 24-hour support 7 days a week. We do have some holidays that are carved out really around the end of the year is really you'll see most of the major holidays that we have not full support, but we may have the phone hours may be limited on those days. There are very few. We also have designated point of contact now, so you actually have the option with support services to for contract, basically contracting a support services point of contact. Just dedicated. We like a customer success manager, but they're solely dedicated to support services. And then from there we have tier 1 services. We have a faculty tier 1 support service, and we also have faculty and student, and then priority tier 1. So really we can lump all of those into tier 1. Today I'm going to talk about standard support 24/7 and tier 1 support. Those will kind of be my general categories that we'll focus on today. I'm actually going to send out a copy of this slide deck, so in an email after the call today. So you'll have the slides are real simple; they're just visual aids, but they do have links. So the URLs are linked into the slides. They'll take you out to the instructor area where you'll see your support terms. We now have Canvas support that incorporates impact and credentials. So you're going to be going to Canvas support if you have impact or you have credentials as an add-on integration to Canvas. Canvas support is going to be your main line of contact, so all of this would still apply. You'll see just different levels here on the support terms. Major differences here will really be for your points of contact, or what we'll refer to as Canvas administrators or support administrators for that have access to our field admin console, which we'll also cover today. If you're standard support, you only have one access point or one license that will access the admin console. Anything above that, 24/7 tier 1, you'll have 3 licenses you can use. Many institutions that have the higher levels of support may use the 3rd license or one of those licenses that accesses the admin console, administrative console for support services. That's really like a support level supervisor, a representative on your end that our support agents would really report to. But many instances or schools will use that 3rd point of contact as a generic, just to kind of a broad, your institution IT or your institution help desk at yourinstitution.edu. It means multiple points of contact at your institution can use that 3rd license. That's handy if your other 2 licenses, your other 2 points of contact happen to be on vacation or unavailable during maybe high traffic. So you'll see that's really where you'll find when we see references to licenses or access to that admin console, that's what we're talking about are within those tiers. But also we see here is where you're going to get kind of your support terms on target initial response times, resolution times. Of course, fall start, spring start are going to be peak times. You're going to see increased traffic, but this is a great page to review over time. This is now, it's been updated to include some of the other support services like the designated point of contact. Talks about availability. So this is really good information to kind of take a look at. If you're ever interested in levels of support service beyond the level that you have, of course, that's when we would bring in Laura Shevlin. She's our account executive, and she's always happy to jump on calls and answer questions about any services you may not have. My focus is going to be on the services you do have. And so all the tips and tricks and best practices today that we cover are going to be for all levels of support. So definitely take a look at that, your support services. What I want to talk quickly about is best practices. And this tends to help during fall start when you have increased traffic. The biggest differentiator, the biggest thing that I think is helpful that I had a hard time with when I was new to support, new to Canvas and Instructure, was what's the difference between customer success and our support agents? Now, again, this might be a refresher for many of you, but I always think it's good to start here and cover what are the differences. So there's a link here to support best practices. This is the general document. I'll share the link as again, you're welcome to share this with administrators. This does a great job of summarizing your support services and again, best practices when it comes to creating cases or tickets, common problems and troubleshooting. Again, that's linked into this slide. It's a pretty hefty document. These links will take you either to supporting documentation, or it'll take you to the content down below when it talks more about how to create a case, uh, common problems and troubleshooting. So I think this is a real helpful document. You've probably only seen this when you first came on board. If you've been with Canvas for a long time, it may have been some time now since you've seen this. So this might be a good refresher. My favorite document in this is the CSM versus support document. And so when you have those questions about where should it go, who should I start with? For Southeast, for the region I work in, depending and even if you've worked with someone different before now for a little while, my best practice for support services is always start with support. Even if you know you want to bring something to the attention of customer success, if we know that it might take a little more troubleshooting, even if it's more strategic, if it has something to do with functionality of Canvas, if it has something to do with button pushing, or something is not working quite like you expected it to, start with a support case, create that with support. And there's a couple different methods to do that. You can do it in your instance. You can do it by email. You can do it through the admin console. But create that case first. And then I always welcome everyone that I work with. If you're on the call today, you're an administrator for office hours. If you're on our monthly calls, if you're on the webinar calls, copy me on those cases. You can carbon copy me either in the case itself. If you create it through email, carbon copy me in the email. It brings it to my attention, so at least I'm aware that the case has been created. Do that before you reach out. You could do it at the same time if you want to carbon copy me and reach out to me, maybe in a separate email, and just say, hey, I've created this case. Everyone on the call today, once you've kind of gotten familiar with support services, I would consider you, more strategic when it comes to support. And so you will learn, if you don't know already, and many of you already do, what needs to be escalated and what needs to start with our L1s, our support team, just the baseline. Many of you on the call today know what an escalation is. You know, if it's technical in nature, you know that it's a larger problem. The impact, if something's broken, needs to go to an L2. Please copy me on those. You still have to submit it to Canvas support. You still have to submit it to an L1, whether you're standard support 24/7 or a tier 1 school. You still have to start with standard, but at least bring it to my attention. I can help escalate it. But create the case first. When in doubt, create a case. If you don't need a case, that's okay. We can move past that. But if you're not sure, just create one anyways, and it's never gonna be harmful. It's always gonna be helpful. It documents that something's occurring that we need to investigate. Additional support services. We talk about this. I'll talk about this in training services. The CCTA. This is a Canvas Certified Technical Administrator. This is a certification that we now offer. This is a license. This allows you to bypass L1s, bypass the first level of support, and escalate directly to an L2 if you have that certification. So if there's interest there, let me know. We've had this in place for a couple of years now. It's been a successful program. It does require you to kind of recert or continue to maintain the license to do that. But if not, again, I still say would carbon copy me or bring me in. But the difference is what is customer success versus what is support. Canvas support, anything technical in nature, anything where if it's not working properly, if a button that's pushed, a process you're following, workflow, if you're looking at community documentation and something doesn't match up, that's going to need to go to support. Anything that's related to LTIs, whether it's enabling an LTI, if you're having any issues with LTIs, integration, anything with configuration of Canvas, anything with your single sign-on or SAML, or anything with authentication, any of those issues, anything with resources, anything with the community documentation itself, with actual documentation, anything with training services, anything with any extended services outside of the normal product set of Canvas or Instructure, that'll be your customer success manager. So that'll be me. So again, basically, if it's technical in nature, if it's related to a workflow, if an instructor is working on it, if you're working on it as an administrator with account settings, it's probably going to be Canvas support. When in doubt, always create a case. So that would be the key takeaway from all of this is go ahead and create a case, copy me if we know that there's probably going to be an escalation involved, so we can get that moving quicker. Yeah, just always bring me in the loop. I'm happy to help out with those things. I'm going to help out in an administrative level, also receiving feedback. So if you have positive feedback, if you have feedback that we need to use for coaching, which happens with customer success, Feel free to pass that along to me. Think of me also as kind of an escalation point for feedback that goes to our support agents. Also, tickets. So whether you're in standard support and you're kind of the point of contact that brings everything to Canvas, or you're providing your support services out to your institution, there are things that you definitely need Canvas support on, even with standard support. So ticket creation is always going to be the same. We do have support ticket best practices. What I would recommend anytime creating a case, and it doesn't matter how you're submitting it, if you're sending an email to support@instructure.com, or you are sending it through your instance, your help navigation, that's one method to do it. Or you can send it through the console. If you have standard support, even in the admin console, when you're logged in with your license, and again, if you have standard support, you have one license, but one point of contact should be able to access the admin console. If there's questions about how to access this, let me know. We can send out community documentation about how to log into the console if it's been some time. We can also have separate calls to talk about what services are available through the admin console, even with standard support. But every level of support has access to the console. Inside the console even for standard level support, is the ability to create a support ticket manually, to call the Canvas support line. There's a phone number there, and chat support, which I don't know why mine says connecting, but you have chat support as well, even for standard support services. So for standard support, if you're providing your support services to your instance, you are still the escalation point, and then you may need to be in contact with Canvas. The admin console is the best way to go. So use the admin console. It's going to help escalate your case. For all other levels of support, 24/7 and Tier 1, this is the fastest mode to get a case in front of a support agent. If you create a case any other way, through email, through the instance itself, through the help navigation, like everybody else does, you're going to be in line with all of those other cases. If you create it through the support console, our system has a way to recognize that case has been created by a Canvas administrator or a field admin through the console, and it does bypass or does speed that case up. So create it through the console first. That would be my default best practice. And then every time a case is created, especially as a field admin, I would highly recommend that you provide as much information as possible. The more information you can provide, the faster that case is going to either one, get to an L1, or two, bypass the L1 and get to L2s or be escalated. Best things to include inside of a case, and this is found in this document, the impact or the scope of the impact. So the larger the impact, of course, the more higher priority, the faster we want to get it to an escalated support member. So you can outline that in your case. Try to say, how many users we think this is affecting, even if it's an estimate, the number of instructors that it's affecting, the number of courses that it's affecting. And again, the higher the priority. We lump those together and begin investigation. And if we also see that there are other institutions, other schools that are reporting the same thing with high impact, that's a fast track to get it escalated and get a fix. If we don't get that information from you, what tends to happen is we get that back and forth, that game of pickleball. I'm a pickleball player, where the ball gets hit back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and it takes longer because every time the ball goes back and forth across the court, it puts you in the back of the line. So it'd be like at the DMV, if you forgot something and they didn't give you that, you had to go back and get it to your house, and then you go back to the DMV and you're in line again, you're getting the back of the line. So we don't want to do that. We want to definitely have everything we're ready when we get to the counter at the DMV. That's probably a horrible reference, but it's the only one that popped into my head. So everything, by the time you get to the counter, you have everything you need. So that's as much documentation as possible, examples, URLs to the problem, screenshots, screen recordings, and then impact, scope. Also state who you are too. That's okay. Sometimes we don't want support to miss that. So, hey, I'm an admin. I've been working, I've been here forever. I've been here for 10 years. I know what an escalation is. That's my other best practice. Another tip, best practice tips and tricks. Tell the support agent that receives at the L1, if you're creating a case, if you know you need an escalation, tell them that this needs to be escalated. Provide as much information as possible. Say, hey, please escalate this to L2. And you've got a really, really good shot of that not having to be kicked back to you for more information, but instead that L1 is going to recognize, okay, this is a field admin. They know what they're talking about. We need to get this on to an L2. So that combination of using the admin console, making sure you know what you're asking for, provide as much documentation as possible, copy your customer success manager. That's a great combination to get a ticket fast-tracked into investigation and ultimately a fix. So keep those all in mind for best practices. Review these documents. And again, this will be all linked into these slides. We already talked about this one. This is the separation or difference between Canvas support, customer success manager. Remember, Canvas support is technical. Check your status page. Number one, if you feel like this is a big problem while you're submitting the case, first thing, go ahead and submit the case, but also check the status page. This is linked here as well. There's oops, I will link it. Go to the status page. This is status.instructure.com. You can check the operational levels of all components of Canvas, Canvas itself, or any other integrated products. You can also check your own URL to see if there's any problems specifically with your instance. It's fairly accurate. It's fairly quick, so you can sometimes see if there's a bigger problem. If there is, go ahead and report that in the case. Hey, we see the status page, says something's going on. We need more information. Also, if it's a bigger status, if it's a longer status, if we've got a problem, you're likely to get an email. So keep an eye out for that. If there's any bigger problems with Canvas at the time, you should get kind of some type of email from our support services kind of describing what the problem is and what we're doing to fix it. Also, the known issues page. This is something big or you've experienced it multiple times, or this is something that's ongoing. Just check the known issues page. We'll also link this into the slides as well. The known issues page is in the community. This is a great way to kind of see something that may be a bigger problem that might take a little bit longer to fix. This is a good way to track it. So I would just definitely advise keeping that available, keeping it bookmark or handy. Known issues also works well with making product recommendations. And so if you have a recommendation you think would help fix a problem, if you have recommendations for product, we have methods of receiving that as well. That can be helpful for some of our known issues or to help fix some of the bigger tickets that do tend to occur over time. So those are all great tools. Known issues and a status page are great to check as you're creating a case, especially if you feel like it's something bigger that needs to be escalated. And then we mentioned the admin console. So again, one of my roles as the customer success manager is to make sure that you fully understand how to use this thing. This is a great tool. This taps directly into data from our support services. So if you want some in-depth data on the tickets, the cases that are being created, where they're coming from, whether they're from instructors or from students, depending on the level of support that you have, or admin created cases, if you're a higher level, you want to be able to get some insight into what exactly are we creating? How are we fully utilizing our standard support services? We have the data that we can pull or take a look at to kind of see how support is being used. We have 30-day windows of data, and we also have bigger reports, many canned reports that you can filter or modify to get information out of what's being submitted into support. If you're a higher service, if you're a tier 1 user support services, you'll also have what we call a customer knowledge base. We see there in the navigation on the slide, the customer KB is a way to create a blueprint, basically to customize your services that our support agents are providing to your end users or your instructors. You have the ability to customize that even further with this customer KB or knowledge base. If you have questions about that, if it's been some time since you've modified your knowledge base, I definitely recommend going into the KB area and taking a look at what's there. Check the dates, see how long it's been since there's been a last update. Support services may make recommendations on updating these things over time. Hopefully they do. If not, then I would say maybe once a year to once every 6 months, taking a look at or auditing your KBs to make sure that they're accurate, the information that's in those KBs to our support agents on how they should be servicing your students and instructors, make sure that's accurate. So best way, constantly modifying KBs. There's nothing wrong with that, especially throughout the year when we know things change and we know every year something changes. It's good to update your customer KBs for those tier 1 schools. Everything else in here, this is a great way to manage cases. You can also create macros. If you have some bigger processes in place where we need tickets to be referred to different IT or help desk systems on your end, we can use macros to do that. So the admin console is a fantastic tool. If you're not using it enough, again, one of my focuses as a customer success manager is to make sure you're fully utilizing all of your tools that you're contracted for. So standard service, standard support should be using the admin console. 24/7 tier 1 support should be using the admin console. Definitely use the reports. The reports can help us make decisions on how we're going to use the service in the future. It also helps us fully utilize the services. If we recognize there are areas that need focus or coaching, or we recognize areas that we need to provide additional resources in your community, which we'll talk about next month in training services, the console is the best way to do that. So again, during this month, I'm happy to have calls that kind of go through more in depth on how to use the admin console effectively. And then strategically, I'd love to have more conversations on your support services. Then what can we do to help provide better resources or to help cut down on tickets? If we're using those reports, especially during a fall start, and you notice, hey, we're getting a lot of tickets about LTIs. Well, what specific LTI are we getting the most calls about or the most chat support? If there's a particular LTI, there's confusion around it, then what can we provide resource-wise within the community, the instance, the Canvas instance that can help cut down on those calls? Ultimately, that's good for everybody. If we can cut down on the number of calls, phone calls, or chat support, if you're tier 1 24/7, it's going to be better for everybody. Standard support, again, that's going to help your staff. If you're providing your own IT or your own help desk support, if we can reduce the number of calls during fall starts, spring start peak times, it's going to be helpful for everybody. So those are the kind of things we look at with support services. That's what I wanted to provide today as far as best practices and really what to look for with support services. So if anything, the biggest takeaway today is remember, copy customer success. If you know that you need an escalation, provide as much information as possible so you can kind of help move that case along and escalate it to an L2 for further investigation. And use the console when you're able. It just moves cases along much faster. So, and again, I'm happy to cover any additional resources or answer questions around the field admin console for support services.